I moved to a quaint town last winter. I was 35 years old and hoped to find peace. The creaky old house I rented had a cozy charm that my city apartment lacked. I set up my writing space by the fireplace, looking for inspiration for my next project. It seemed perfect. One evening I sat down with a cup of hot tea. I typed a few words, but then I heard it, a soft tapping sound coming from the attic. It was faint, and I thought maybe it was the house settling. I shook it off and focused on my writing, but something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. In the following days, the tapping grew louder. Each night I heard it more clearly, like a persistent knock echoing through the rafters. I convinced myself it was just an old house making noises. I kept saying it was nothing, but the feeling of unease just wouldn't leave. Then strange postcards began showing up at my door. They were from locals, and they all talked about odd winter occurrences. One mentioned shadows dancing just out of sight. Another spoke of whispers carried on the wind. A chill ran down my spine. Was this a joke? I couldn't believe it. Maybe I was being too sensitive, but I felt uneasy. The tapping grew louder as I read each card. I started seeing things, too. Shadows flitting in my peripheral vision during the day, or whispers that echoed in the quiet of night. I tried to dispel the thoughts. Maybe it was all in my head. But as the days went on, the line between reality and imagination blurred. My heart raced at the thought. Was I truly hearing those noises? Was I actually seeing those shadows? I couldn't tell anymore. It felt like I was losing my grip. Finally, one evening, I had enough. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the creaky stairs to the attic door. The tapping was a rhythm now, beckoning me. My heart raced. I hesitated at the door handle. A part of me wanted to run, but curiosity pulled me in. As I finally pushed the door open, something cold brushed my cheek. I turned quickly, and that's when I saw it, something just outside the range of my flashlight. It felt like it was staring right through me. My breath hitched. I wanted to scream or run, but I was frozen. I couldn't look away. Then everything went dark. I can still hear the tapping today. Maybe it's my imagination, but the feeling that something is waiting for me in the shadows never quite goes away. The next morning, I woke up with a start. Sunlight flooded the room, but the warmth did little to ease my anxiety. The memory of the cold presence in the attic lingered, sharp and unsettling. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake it off. Maybe I was just overreacting. There had to be a rational explanation. I decided to distract myself. I made a cup of coffee and opened my laptop, but writing felt impossible. The words wouldn't come. My thoughts kept drifting back to the attic. What had I seen? I felt silly for not going back and confronting it, but I wasn't sure if I even wanted to know. Later in the day, I ventured outside, hoping to gather some normalcy. I wandered into the local cafe, drawn by the aroma of baked goods. As I settled into a corner booth, I noticed a group of people at the counter. They were chatting animatedly, a bright contrast to my heavy mood. One of them, an older woman with an inviting smile, caught my eye. She seemed familiar, like someone I recognized from one of the postcards. I decided to approach her. "Excuse me," I said, nerves creeping in. "I saw your postcard at my door, about the shadows." Her expression shifted. It was subtle, but I noticed a hint of concern. "Oh, those... Yes, there's been talk of odd happenings around here, especially in winter. The shadows are just the beginning." My heart raced. "What do you mean? What happens?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Many locals have seen things, heard things. My family has been here for generations. We've always had strange occurrences, but this season seems worse." "What kinds of things?" I pressed, desperate for answers. "Whispers, shadows, even things moving when no one's around. Some believe it's related to the old houses around here. They carry stories. Old stories." "What stories?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "The kind that chills your bones. No one knows exactly what happened, but they say some of the previous owners never left. They're still here, watching. A wave of fear washed over me. Was I part of this? I thanked her and stepped outside, the air feeling colder than before. When I got home, I paced the living room, my mind racing. What if the tapping, the shadows, the whispers were all connected to this? I couldn't ignore it anymore. I felt drawn back to the attic, but dread coiled in my stomach. As night fell, the house settled into silence. It felt heavy, oppressive. I grabbed my flashlight again and stood at the base of the stairs. Taking a deep breath, I ascended once more, each step creaking underfoot. When I reached the attic door, I hesitated, but the memory of the strange woman, her words echoing in my mind, pushed me forward. I opened the door, and the cold air rushed out to greet me. I flicked on the flashlight, illuminating the corners, but I wasn't prepared for what I found. In the middle of the attic was a box, old and dusty, like it had been waiting for me. A part of me felt like I was meant to find it, but another part screamed to run. I took a step closer, my heart pounding. What secrets were inside that box? What awaited me in the shadows? I needed to know, and yet I was terrified of the answer. I reached out to touch the box, hesitating just inches away. Dust particles danced in the beam of my flashlight. The wooden surface was rough and weathered, as if it had been ignored for decades. Swallowing hard, I finally lifted the lid. Inside lay a collection of old photographs, letters, and what looked like a journal. My pulse quickened as I carefully sorted through the items, feeling the weight of their history. The photographs were faded, images of families standing in front of a house that looked eerily similar to mine. Most of the faces were unfamiliar, but the expressions etched deep within their eyes spoke of loss and sorrow. I picked up the journal, its leather binding cracked and brittle. Flipping it open, I was met with neat handwriting that suddenly halted my breath. The date on the first page was from over 50 years ago. I scanned the pages, my eyes darting over phrases like "the shadows grow" and "the whispers at night." Each word sent chills coursing through me. As I read, I came across a particularly unsettling entry. "They watch us from the corners," it said, "silhouettes darting by when we least expect it. We hear the whispers at night, begging us to leave." I shivered, my thoughts racing. I wasn't just in an old house. I was in a house filled with memories of fear. Could I be experiencing the same phenomenon? Were the shadows waiting for me as they had for those families so long ago? The air felt heavier now. I was not alone. A noise echoed through the attic, a soft rustling sound that sent my heart into overdrive. I glanced up, gripping the journal tighter. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice sounded small and nervous. There was a silence, thick and oppressive. Then I heard it again, a faint whisper this time. Something was here. I swung my flashlight to the far corner of the attic, where the beam fell short, swallowed by darkness. Panic clawed at my throat. I wanted to run, to slam the door and forget everything I had uncovered, but curiosity rooted me to the floor. What if the whispers were tied to the box? With a deep breath, I turned my attention back to the journal. I flipped further through pages, desperate for clues. Then, as I read one last entry, a chill ran down my spine. A name jumped out at me, Miriam. She had lived here, and the words around the name spoke of a paralyzing fear of nightfall. That's when I felt it. A cold breath against my neck. I whipped around, flashlight shaking in my grasp. "Who's there?" I demanded, but the attic stood silent. The feeling of being watched returned, more intense now. I backed toward the door, my heart racing. I couldn't shake the sensation of someone or something standing right behind me. It was almost unbearable. Just as I reached for the doorknob, the flashlight flickered, plunging the room into darkness. When the light came back on, the box was gone. Panic surged through me. I had to get out of that attic. But something told me that whatever was in that box, whatever was in this house, was far from finished with me. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the loose floorboards as I scanned the attic. Where had the box gone? It couldn't have vanished without a trace. My flashlight flickered again, casting long shadows across the walls, making it seem like the darkness had gained weight. I felt it all over again, the cold breath, the prickle of eyes watching me. Think, I muttered under my breath. I had to calm down. I gripped the journal tightly as if it could somehow protect me. Maybe it held the key to understanding what was happening here. I turned slowly, checking every corner. I dreaded what I might find, yet the urge to know what was happening outweighed my fear. "Miriam," I whispered. Her name felt like a thread pulling me deeper into the mystery. Then out of the corner of my eye I noticed something. A glimmer, a small object sticking out from under a dust-covered beam. I approached cautiously, heart pounding. When I bent down, I found an old locket, tarnished but still intact. I opened it, heart racing. Inside was a tiny photo of a girl, maybe 10 years old, with wide eyes that seemed to follow me. The whispers returned, louder this time. "Leave," they urged, echoing through the attic. I heard a distinct creak of wood behind me, my breath caught in my throat. I jerked around to find myself staring into the dark corner where I felt someone had been standing just moments before. "Stop it!" I shouted, anger blurring with fear. "This isn't your home anymore." Silence fell for a moment, heavy and tense. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then a loud thud resounded from the far side of the attic, the sound of something heavy crashing to the floor. I jumped, scrambling back toward the door. Just as I reached for the knob, the unmistakable jab of panic returned. I needed to escape, to get out of this place filled with shadows and secrets. But I hesitated. What if I missed something important? The locket, the journal. Were they all warning signs, or were they pieces of a puzzle that I needed to complete? Before I could think it through, I heard a soft giggle. The sound was childlike, innocent, out of place in the dark attic. My skin prickled and I spun around again. "Who is there?" My voice cracked slightly. Then I saw it, a fleeting shadow darting between the rafters, too quick for me to grasp. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. I was not imagining this. There was something alive in this house. As I turned back to leave, the locket slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. I almost left it behind, but my heart seized with the thought of losing another piece of this strange story. I took a breath, bent down, and snatched it back up. But when I stood again, the attic door was ajar, swinging slowly on its hinges, as if inviting me back in. My instinct screamed to run, yet curiosity drew me closer to the threshold. I had come too far to turn back now. Then a soft voice broke through the silence. "Help me." I froze. I had to decide how to respond. Would I face whatever was waiting for me in the dark, or would I flee from this house forever, leaving its mysteries unsolved? The choice loomed over me, like the shadows in the attic. I took a shaky breath, stepping closer to the door. I had to know. "Help me," the voice had said again, so soft but so clear. It was difficult to tell if it was real or just a figment of my terrified mind. I waited, listening, trying to catch any further sounds. The shadows folded in around me and the atmosphere felt charged, like there was electricity in the air. I finally stepped over the threshold, the old wood creaking beneath my weight. The attic felt different now, as if the air had thickened. I pushed my flashlight beam into the darkness, searching for the source of the voice. "Miriam!" I tried calling out, but my words came out like a whisper. Suddenly something flickered at the edge of my light. My heart raced as I turned. The beam caught a figure, small and slight, almost lost in the array of colors that the fading light allowed, standing beneath the window. I blinked hard, and it was gone, like smoke fading into the air. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. Anxiety mingled with determination. Another giggle echoed, higher, like the chime of a bell. I followed the sound, cautious yet drawn to it like a moth to a flame. As I rounded a corner, I tripped over a stack of old crates, stumbling to regain my balance. My hands landed on something soft. I quickly pulled back my flashlight to see what it was. A thin, tattered blanket lay spread across the floor, half covering a small, makeshift bed. My heart sank. It felt absurdly personal, as if someone could have once used this space as their secret hideaway. I thought about the girl in the locket. Was this her place? That's when I saw it. The outline of a diary, almost entirely buried under layers of dust and neglect. I knelt down, brushing off the surface. The leather was cracked, but it held a certain elegance. Curiosity warred with dread as I opened it, the brittle pages crackling under my touch. The first entry was dated years ago, talking about a friend who had vanished, leaving behind a haunting mystery. She said she could see them, the shadows, and they wanted her to join them, it read. My pulse quickened. I could feel the weight of each word, as if they carried the girl's unresolved fear. I flipped through the pages, desperate to learn more. The entries talked of games played in the attic and whispers heard in the night. Each recounting heightened my unease, especially as I read about how the girl became frightened, convinced she was not alone. Then I found an entry that chilled me to the bone. I'm scared that I'm losing my way. I can hear them now. They want me to stay. As I read those words, the air around me shifted. The shadows in the corners deepened, and I felt a presence behind me, cold and heavy. I turned slowly, illuminating the space with my flashlight. Then everything went dark. My heart pounded in the silence after the lights flicked off. I swung my flashlight around, desperate to catch any semblance of light. Panic surged through me. "Hello?" I called, voice wavering in the dark. No answer. Instinctively I moved toward the rickety attic stairs, the wood creaking ominously beneath my feet. But then I heard it, a faint shuffling sound to my left. I stopped, holding my breath, eyes straining in the dim glow of my flashlight, praying to see something, anything. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The only response was a soft rustle, like fabric brushing against itself. It sent chills rippling down my spine. I had to force myself to stay calm. I couldn't let fear take over. With hesitant steps, I crept toward the source of the sound, feeling the floor shift under my weight. The smell of dusty fabric filled my nostrils. Maybe I could find out who or what was there. Just as I reached the edge of what I could see, the flashlight flickered. My heart skipped a beat before the light steadied, illuminating uncovered corners of the attic. Then I caught a glimpse, a swirl of grey cloth darting away, too quick to clearly define. "Wait!" I shouted, emotions unraveling as I hurried after it. The weight of the silence pressed on me, as if the attic was holding its breath. As I turned the corner, I saw a quick flash of movement again. A small door at the far side of the attic swung half open. I didn't remember seeing that door before. It looked ancient, an inviting door in a threatening place. A chill washed over me as I remembered the diary's last words. The shadows want me to stay. Did the shadows really want me? I felt trapped between curiosity and dread, but I pressed forward. Maybe whatever was behind that door held the key to understanding what had happened to the girl. I needed to know. I reached the door, my hand hovering just above the knob. It felt icy. A deep breath steadied me, and I turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. My flashlight beam wasn't strong enough to penetrate the depths below, but a faint whisper drifted up. "Help me!" I took a step down, feeling the words pull me in. "Who are you?" I whispered into the void. "What do you want?" I forced myself to take another step. I needed to know who was down there, who was calling for help. But as I descended, that soft whisper flickered into a low hiss, growing stronger, filling my ears. At that moment, I noticed the air changed again. A draft swept up around me, carrying a scent I couldn't quite place. It was sweet, yet rotting, the kind of smell that should never come from a hidden place in your home. And then the whisper turned into a scream. I hesitated, skin prickling with fear and uncertainty. What had I just opened? With a deep, reluctant breath, I stepped further down, my heart racing. The shadows welcomed me, enveloping me in darkness. Just as I was about to descend the last step, the door slammed shut behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I was trapped. I stood frozen on the staircase, the echo of the slamming door reverberating in my ears. Panic surged again, coursing through my veins. I had to think. I pressed my back against the cold wall, feeling the roughness of the aged wood. My fingers trembled as I gripped the flashlight tightly, the beam flickering again, threatening to die out. "Hello?" I shouted, frustration mingling with fear. "Is anyone down there?" Silence, the kind that feels heavy, wrapping around you like a fog. I forced myself to take a deep breath and moved slowly down the last step. The air felt thicker, almost like it was pressing against my skin. As I stepped down, the beam of my flashlight caught something, a glimmer near the wall. I knelt to investigate, brushing aside layers of dust. My fingers scratched against something smooth and cold. I pulled it closer. A necklace, tarnished silver with a small locket dangling from it. My heart raced. Had this belonged to the girl? Thinking of the diary, I snapped the locket open. Inside was a tiny picture, a girl, her ghostly smile strikingly familiar. I felt a jolt in my chest. The resemblance was uncanny. "Who are you?" I whispered, losing myself in her gaze. As I pondered this, a sudden rustling sound made me jump. I swung my flashlight toward the source. Shadows writhed on the edges of my vision, and a figure abruptly lunged from the darkness. I stumbled backward, my heart in my throat. The light caught a silhouette, a girl, but not the one in the locket. She was older, her features twisted with an expression of anger. "Why are you here?" she hissed, her voice echoing around me. "I'm just trying to help," I stammered, scrambling back against the wall. "I need to find out what happened." Her dark eyes bore into me, and for a moment I saw something softer flicker within. "You shouldn't have come down. The shadows will take you." "What shadows?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but dread coiled in my gut. A chilling laugh escaped her lips as she stepped closer, the light waning. "They know who you are. They see you. They want you." Suddenly the air shifted again, bringing waves of that sickly sweet scent. For a split second I felt a pull, a strange gravity tugging me toward her. Panic rose higher. Everything in me screamed to flee. Then I heard the whisper again, the urgent plea echoing through the air. "Help me." Forcing myself to focus, I held the locket out toward her. "Do you know her? The girl in this picture? Is she okay?" The mention of the girl weakens the tension for just a moment, but it quickly returned, thick and ominous. Her expression flickered again, and just as I felt hope, the shadows around her deepened. "You need to leave now. It's too late for me." Before I could respond, the walls shook, and the brightness of my flashlight dimmed to a mere flicker. With a final scream, she lunged at me, the darkness closing in. That's when I realized it wasn't just the shadows that wanted me. Someone else was here, and they were far from friendly. I didn't think. I spun around and ran. My heart thundered in my chest as I raced up the stairs, each step echoing in the suffocating silence. I could feel the darkness creeping up behind me, almost like it had a physical presence, grasping at my clothing and pulling me back. The beam of my flashlight struggled to pierce through the blackness, and I feared it might go out completely. Instinct drove me to reach the upper level. I burst through the door and slammed it shut behind me, pressing my back against it as if it were a barrier against whatever had been down there. For a moment I stood there, panting, clutching the locket in one hand. The image of the girl stared back at me, haunting. "Okay, think," I whispered, searching the shadows of the hallway. I noticed how the gloom seemed even denser outside the range of my flashlight, a living thing just waiting to swallow me whole. There was no time to dwell on my terrifying encounter. I had to figure out what was happening. My eyes skimmed the walls for some sign that could guide me. I recalled snippets from the diary and the girl's name. There was something familiar about it, but I couldn't grasp it. I needed more information. My thoughts raced as I took a cautious step away from the door. "Help me?" The voice from downstairs echoed in my mind. It had been a plea, desperate and raw. I couldn't ignore it. I decided to search the hallway, hoping for a clue. Its wooden planks creaked beneath me as I ventured further, glancing at each door. One stood slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning me to enter. I nudged it open, holding my breath. Inside was a small bedroom. The window had been boarded up, and only faint patches of dust danced in the flashlight beam. My heart pounded as I approached the dresser. Something caught my eye. A journal. It was smaller than the one I found before, leather-bound and aged. I reached for it just as the temperature in the room dropped. A sudden chill wrapped around me like a vice. Goosebumps erupted on my arms as I felt someone watching me. I turned slowly, half expecting to see the girl again, but the room was empty. I forced myself to focus on the journal. My fingers trembled as I flipped through its pages. It contained sketches and notes, scribbled accounts of strange occurrences. The last entry caught my eye. "They are coming for me," it read, with a frantic scrawl. I read further, my breath catching. "The shadows know my name. They want to play." An icy wave of fear washed over me. The shadows weren't just a metaphor. They were real. That's when I heard it again, the whispering. It seeped through the air, wrapping around me, a cacophony of voices rising and falling like a tide. "Help us." I stumbled back, the journal slipping from my fingers. The floor creaked, and then a light flickered on. The bulb overhead buzzed erratically, casting eerie shadows against the walls. As I backed away, I felt the sensation again, a pull as if the room itself was drawing me in. I was not safe here. I needed to leave, but the darkness was shifting, and it knew I was here. Just then I caught a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye. I gasped, my heart hitting overdrive, as I turned to see a faint outline slipping through the doorframe. Someone, or something, was in the house with me, and it wasn't friendly. I didn't want to confront whatever lurked outside the door, but staying here felt like a death sentence. I quickly scanned the room, looking for an escape route. The window was boarded up, and the only other exit was the door I had just come through. I contemplated fumbling with the journal, but I couldn't risk taking my eyes off the doorway. I steadied my breath and crept closer to the door. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown, and the whispering grew louder, more frantic, urging me to act. "Help us. Please." I pressed my ear against the door. The faint sounds of movement echoed on the other side. It felt like someone was pacing, shuffling feet with an eerie rhythm. I had to remind myself that I wasn't alone. Suddenly, the shadows in the room seemed to shift again, coalescing into something darker. A figure, thin and elongated, began to materialize by the doorframe. The way it moved was unnatural, as if it fluctuated between solid and smoke. My throat tightened as I stifled a scream. In a moment of panic, I turned away from the door. The journal lay at my feet, but I didn't have time to retrieve it. I was about to break for the window when the whispering stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. "Help me," a quiet voice echoed, but this time it was clear. It wasn't coming from the other side of the door. It was right behind me. I spun around, and there she was. The girl from the locket stood there, pale and translucent, like a reflection on glass. Her eyes were wide and pleading, shimmering with unshed tears. "They're coming for you. You have to go." I felt a surge of fear and disbelief smash into me. "Who? What do you mean?" I managed to stammer, backing away from her slowly. "They want you. Like they wanted me," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't stop them." A sudden gust of wind billowed through the room, and the temperature dropped again. The shadows surged, writhing around my feet. Panic consumed me. "But why? What do they want?" "I don't know," she cried, her form flickering. "But you have to leave now." As if driven by some unseen force, I took a step towards her. It felt wrong. I didn't want to be closer to her, yet her outstretched hand drew me in. "Please, I can't let you go through what I did." Her eyes pierced into my soul, pleading for me to understand. As the shadows closed in, I heard a loud bang from the hallway. The sound of wood splintering yanked my attention away momentarily. I glanced back toward the door, and in that instant I realized something shifted behind me. The darkness was reacting to her presence. It wanted her. Without thinking, I lunged for the door. I pushed it open with all my strength and burst through, racing into the hallway. Trembling, I didn't dare look back, but I could feel her presence fading behind me, pulled back into the void. Heart racing, I sprinted down the hallway towards the stairs. I knew I had to find a way out before it consumed me too. But as I ran, I heard the whispering again, louder now, almost drowning out my frantic breaths. "Help us! Save us!" My legs felt heavy. Each step was a battle against the weight of the shadows, trying to drag me back. Then suddenly, I skidded to a halt as I stumbled upon a door I hadn't seen before. It was slightly cracked, and a dim light seeped through the gap. This was my chance. I pushed it open and felt a surge of warmth wash over me, completely contrasting the unbearable chill of the house. As I stepped inside the room, I saw a flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. I was ready to close the door behind me when I noticed a photograph on the wall. That's when I saw it, a picture of the girl with a family, smiling brightly, looking so happy. I recognized her instantly, but the question lingered in my mind. What had happened to her, and how the heck had she ended up here? Just then, the door behind me slammed shut. My heart sank as the thud echoed through the room. I spun around, but there was no handle to turn. I was trapped. The warmth that had enveloped me felt like a cruel joke as the shadows began creeping toward the edges of my vision again. "Help!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Let me out!" But the only response was silence, punctuated by the soft, relentless whispers that seemed to seep through the walls. A cacophony of voices urging me to stay with them, help them, join them. I stumbled back, the picture of the girl still in front of me, those innocent eyes fixed on an unseen threat. "What happened to you?" I whispered, desperate for answers. "What do they want?" Just then, the ghostly figure of the girl from the locket appeared beside me, translucent and flickering with despair. "You have to go. They're angry. You shouldn't be here." "Why?" I cried, my fear bubbling over. "What's stopping me?" "They will take you if you stay. The darkness. It feeds off your fear." Her voice trembled, strained with energy. As if to emphasize her warning, the shadows surged forward, engulfing the room. I felt myself being pulled toward the wall as if an invisible force wanted to claim me. I thought of all the postcards, their eerie tales of whispers and shadows, and the stories shared at the cafe. I couldn't be just another name on a list. I needed to escape. "Please, I don't want to leave you," I pleaded, tears stinging my eyes. "No," she cried, shaking her head desperately. "You must break the cycle. You must escape." That was when I had an idea. I remembered the locket in my hand. I opened it, seeing the girl once more. You were happy, weren't you? You had a family. You weren't left alone. I can't help you, but I can find the others. I can help your story be remembered." The shadows lashed out, furious at my defiance, and the air thickened with their rage. I could almost see them, faces contorted with anger and sorrow, searching me for weakness. But before they could fully envelop me, a pool of brilliant light appeared in front of me, shimmering like a portal. "Jump!" the girl screamed, her figure practically trembling under the pressure of the encroaching darkness. With a deep breath, acknowledging I might step right into oblivion, I lunged toward the light. Instantly it consumed me, pulling at every fiber of my being. As the shadows shrieked in the distance, I felt warmth envelop my body, and the next thing I knew, I hit the wooden floor hard. I gasped, staring up at sunlight streaming through a window, bright and blinding. I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding. but I was outside. My old house stood in front of me, still and quiet, with none of the chaos I'd left behind. The eeriness still clung to me as I looked back, squinting at the silhouette of the house that felt forever marked. The front door was ajar, but everything seemed still and normal. No voices, no shadows. "I'm free," I whispered, disbelief swarming me, but as I turned away I felt a tug at the back of my mind, a lingering question like an itch I couldn't scratch. What if this was just another layer of the illusion? Did the shadows follow me here? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Whatever had happened in that house might have ended for me, but I knew the story still thrived. The mystery was far from over. Sometimes you could escape the shadows, yet they still lingered just on the edge of your memory. I moved forward, stepping toward my car, but I felt the tug again, an echo of whispers lingering in the breeze. "Help us." I'd always carry that voice with me. I stood in the sunlight, but the question hung over my head like the shadows of the house. Was I safe, or just one step away from the darkness calling me back? Life resumed, but I never returned to that town. A part of me would always remember, to know I was not the only one left behind, and somewhere shadows awaited.